Trev's Show. I'm the Trev. That's too sweet. Anyway, continuing with my review of the NHL's outdoor games. And today, we're talking about the 18th outdoor game in NHL history, or the 7th Stadium Series game, which is not too far removed from the first Stadium Series game this year. It is also worth pointing out this is the third outdoor game of 4 in 2016, but it is also the last outdoor game for the 2015-16 season. It's a lot, I know. But in this game, we're revisiting an older, well, not so much older, but a rivalry that isn't really a rivalry anymore. At least it's not to the boiling point it used to be. You know, with the theme of the outdoor games this year being rivalry games, it was a rivalry. It was a very heated rivalry, and it was probably one of the best in my mind, but it's really died down. But either way, I get what they were thinking with it, and I appreciate the thought, but it's just too bad it wasn't what it used to be. But anyways, today, we're going to talk about the Colorado Avalanche hosting the Detroit Red Wings. So let's talk about it. Alright, so the second Stadium Series game for 2016 was played on February 27th, 2016, 6 days after the first one that took place in Minnesota. This one's taking place from Coors Field in Denver, Colorado, home of Major League Baseball's Colorado Rockies. Now, again, going back to the 2015 Stadium Series game, where I had mentioned Denver was a spot on the NHL in their short list of where they wanted to set a location for an outdoor game. And like almost all the locations mentioned in that video, Denver was chosen for the second Stadium Series game. Not a bad choice. I mean, you can't go wrong having a game in Denver. Now, the attendance for this game saw some 50,095 spectators, which, in terms of overall outdoor attendance records, puts it just outside the top 10 in terms of most attended, but didn't do anything to diminish the feel of the game. That temperature came in at 65 degrees Fahrenheit, or 18 degrees Celsius if you speak Canadian, which to this date, or at least at this recording, made it the warmest temperature in an outdoor game played, beating the 2014 Stadium Series between the Kings and the Ducks by 1 degree Celsius. So, pretty warm one. Also worth pointing out, though, that this game is being played at 52,000 feet above sea level, which is the tradition of Denver, you know, with their positioning and sea levels and altitudes and stuff like that. Worth pointing out. So, for the Colorado Avalanche, this is their first outdoor game. And for the Detroit Red Wings, this is their third outdoor game, having already previously played in the 2009 and 2014 Winter Classics. So this is their first Stadium Series game. So with all that, let's talk the rosters. So as I previously mentioned, this is Colorado's first game, so pretty much the entire roster, with the exception of Jerome McGinley and Alex Tanguay, who had already previously played in the 2011 Heritage Classic, are now playing in their second game. Everybody else, this is their first time. So in net, Varley got your start, and the Avalanche are coached by Patrick Waugh. So, as far as their jerseys are concerned, the design is based off their initial shoulder patch, which is used on their primaries. And while I get it, and I like the coloring, and I like how it looks, it just looks weird having the shoulder patch as the primary on this jersey. But I can dig it. You know, it's not a bad look. It didn't grow on me like I thought it would. Now let's talk Detroit. So as mentioned, for the Detroit Red Wings, this is their third outdoor game, and pretty much the bulk of their roster is left over from the 2014 Winter Classic, including but not limited to Justin Abdelkader, Pavel Datsyuk, Danny DeKeyser, Luke Glendening, Jimmy Howard, only Jimmy Howard is the backup in this game, Nicholas Kronwall, Peter Mrazek, who was the backup in 2014, Gustav Nyquist, Kyle Quincy, Thomas Tatar, and Henrik Zetterberg are all returning from the 2014 Winter Classic. It's also worth pointing out Brad Richards is playing in his 5th outdoor game, and Mike Green is playing in his 3rd. There's that. As mentioned, Mrazek is your starter, and the Red Wings are coached at this point in time by Jeff Blashill. Now, as for the Red Wings jerseys, well, they went with something a little different. I mean, the Detroit D is still front and present, as it normally is with outdoor jerseys that Detroit wears. Well, for this, the second one anyway. The only thing that I really have a hard time accepting is that sash in the front, but it's not a bad look. It doesn't diminish the jersey at all. It's just a different look. But such is most Stadium Series jerseys. So we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the rivalry in this one. And as I said, it's not even a shot at it's still a rivalry at this point, but between 1995 and 2002, this was a blood rivalry. Thanks to the hit that set things in motion and the Fight Night at the Joe and its sequel, between that 8-year span, it was survival of the fittest with these two teams. And in that 8-year span, 5 Stanley Cups were shared between these two teams. 2 for the Avalanche in 1996 and 2001, and 3 for the Detroit Red Wings in 1997, 1998, and 2002. But after that last cup run, the rivalry really seemed to fizzle out at that point, and thanks to the Red Wings relocating to the Eastern Conference in 2013, it's really been a lot less of a thing since 2002, when it started becoming less of a thing. Again, I appreciate the thought that they were going forward in this one, but it would have made a lot more sense if it was still the rivalry it was. I mean, in a sense, we should be thankful it isn't, but kind of miss it. So now that we've rounded all those bases, let's talk about the game. So the first period, despite having its moments, was pretty much 5 minutes of moving the puck. And it could have been a feeling out of the ice kind of a deal, but either way, it was only for 5 minutes. At the 5:07 mark, Thomas Tatar would score his 17th of the season, unassisted, as he had unintentionally blocked a shot and took it around the net for about 3 more shots to give the Red Wings the 1-0 lead. And just over 2 minutes later, at the 7:44 mark, the Avalanche would even up the score, as Nathan MacKinnon would score his 20th on the season from Gabriel Landeskog to make it a 1-1 game. And I mean, really, even in 2016, how does one stop Nathan MacKinnon, especially when he's got turbo mode on? Like, it's damn near impossible. And the fact that you can speed up and brake like that, boy. So we got the early 1-1 tie. Now at the 10:07 mark, we get our first penalty of the game, as Andrew Brodnichuk would get called for high sticking, giving Detroit its first power play of the game, which 2 minutes later didn't really amount to much. About 2.5 minutes after that penalty expired, Colorado would take its first lead of the game, as Tyson Barrie would score his 11th of the season on a pretty easy shot past Peter Mrazek from Blake Como and Mikhail Grigorenko at 14:38 to give the Avalanche its first lead of the game, 2-1 over the Red Wings. And this goal actually went to a review for goaltender interference, but it was still called a good goal. So good break for the Avalanche on that one. And from that point, it's all Detroit trying to keep the puck out, but also trying to get the opportunities of their own. But not even 15 seconds after getting the 2-1 lead, Cody McLeod would get a 4-minute double minor for high sticking at 14:49. So for the next 4 minutes, the Red Wings were on the power play. And to be brutally honest, that 4 minutes really only resulted in shots. So 5 seconds after that power play expired, both teams would play some 4-on-4, as Pavel Datsyuk would get called for roughing and Gabriel Landeskog would get called for holding at 18:54, making them the last penalties of the first period. So with that 2-1 lead, the Avs also beat the Red Wings in shots 14-11. And a very good first period for the Avalanche. I mean, Varlamov and the defense, they're doing their jobs, keeping that puck out, with the exception of one. But this is only the first period, right? So let's go on to the second. Now, as far as scoring goes in the second period, well, I can't tell you about any, because there was no scoring. None in the second period. Normally, that would be a first period in some of the earlier outdoor games, but at this point, it's more of a defense mode for both teams, with Mrazek keeping out what he faced and Varley pretty much doing the same thing. But it's not to say that it was a bore of a period or a bare score sheet, as there were some penalties in this period. Danny DeKaiser would get called for high sticking at 4:01, and after 6 minutes of some back and forth, Chris Bigra would get called for holding at 10:14. And almost a minute and a half after that, the Detroit Red Wings would get called for too many men on the ice at 13:20. And really, that's all she wrote for the second period. It was more just skating with the puck, passing it, and trying to make something, even though not much was coming. Now, when I said both goalies kept out what they faced, well, both goalies only faced 4 shots apiece. And there was a couple that went ting, but didn't go in. Now, I wasn't lying when I said defense mode ruled this period, so I guess with that, on to the third. Colorado still has the 2-1 lead. Alright, so for what we lacked in terms of scoring in the second period, well, we more than made up for that in the third, and fast. Gustav Nyquist will open up the scoring in the third period with his 15th of the year with a no-look backhand that had the almost no-see effect, but Varley just could not get his shoulder up high enough. From Riley Sheehan and Thomas Tatar at 1:27 to tie the game at 2. And it was a sick no-look backhand, though. I mean, I have to admit that. And Varley's my boy, so you don't want to see that kind of thing go on, especially to your boy, but that was a sick no-look backhand. So after 7 minutes of more shots from both teams, Detroit would end up on the power play, as Blake Como would get called for tripping at 8:22, and the ensuing power play would wield nothing, as the penalty kill did their job effectively. After 3 minutes of back and forth, and after the expiration of said power play, the Red Wings would get their lead back for the first time since the first period, as Justin Applicator would score his 15th of the year off a quick tip-in right on Varley's right side from Darren Helm and Luke Glendening at 13:28 for the 3-2 lead. Now, for Applicator, you got to talk about being in the right spot, and he was in the right spot, and hats off to Darren Helm for going in the corner to get it. You know, if it weren't for that and Applicator actually being there, that might not have been a goal. But this lead would not last. Not for terribly long anyway, as 14 seconds later, Alex Tanway would score his 4th of the year on a slap shot just past the blue line from Gabriel Landeskog and Nathan McKinnon at the 13:42 mark to tie the game at 3. And that really was determination at its finest. It was a case of we're getting that goal back, and we're getting that goal back now. And they did. And about roughly a minute after that goal, we'd see our last penalty of the game, as Mike Green would get called for tripping at 14:39 to give the Avalanche their last power play of the game. But like every power play in this game, it wouldn't amount to much. So for the next 4 minutes, we're playing like we're going to overtime. That was until Brad Richards, Mr. Reliable in an outdoor game Brad Richards, would score his 7th on the year on the rebound from Nicholas Kronwall that, if it weren't for the puck being bouncy, it might not have gone in at the 19-minute mark. Exactly 1 minute left in the game to give the Red Wings the very late 4-3 lead. Now, poor Varley. He would have had it if it weren't bouncing, but I'm sure I'm just making up excuses for him. So with that, the decision was made to pull Varlam off, and the Red Wings would put the icing on this cake as Darren Helm would score on the empty net for his 8th on the year from Peter Mrazek and Nicholas Kronwall at the 19:40 mark for the 5-3 Detroit Red Wings lead. So, with only 20 seconds left and not much room for a comeback, at this point anyway, this is pretty much how the game would end. Now, Detroit would not only won the goal game in the third period, but they also managed to outshoot the Avalanche 13-9 to also take the win in shots, but only by 1 as it ended at 28-27 in Detroit's favor. But what a finish. That last minute, that last 2 minutes even. Oh yeah. I mean, Again, if it weren't for that bounce, it might have went to overtime. But what a finish! And I'm not gonna lie, I was getting ready for overtime on this game, right near the end. But the Red Wings had other ideas. No, while this was an older, less active rivalry game, it had its moments. I mean, not everything that happened was called, and there was a good deal of pushing and shoving. There were some nice hits too, but some of it wasn't called. But overall, the speed of the game and some of the players involved and the scoring of the third period alone, I mean, that was 5 goals in the third period. The way the Red Wings just took command of the game at the midway point even of the third period. I mean, you could really see the momentum shift and where Colorado was starting to lose the grip, but it was definitely an enjoyable game. And the fact that it really stayed close for 2 periods before that last minute of the third, when it just kind of fell right apart for the Avalanche, still a great game. Now, as far as outdoor game statistics is concerned, the Red Wings are 2-1 in outdoor games, and as far as overall teams and where they land on the points chart, they'd be second. For the Avalanche, though, I mean, obviously this is their first game, and it ended in a loss. Not a good record outside at this point anyway. But again, this is only their first game. It's not their last, but it is their first. So let me know what you thought of the 2016 Stadium Series Colorado game. So that's another one of them Trev's hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you've made it to this point. And if you have made it to this point, you should strongly consider putting that thumbs up. I mean, you're here. It means you've made it. It means you dig what I'm doing. If you just want to say, hey, feel free to put that thumbs up. It helps me out a lot more than you know. That red button, the one that says subscribe all over it, come on, you know you want to hit it. I know you want to hit it. The algorithm knows you want to hit it. And we're making that push to 500 by the end of the year. So, be a pal. Let's make this happen. For everybody that's still here, thank you very much. I do appreciate you very, very much. And I hope you're enjoying the ride. Now, if you want to, there's a link in that description below. That'll take you to my Facebook page. Feel free to join that. It's free. And I'd love to build an audience. You know, just because it's not what the YouTube page is, but it doesn't say we can't bring it up. So, your call if you want to do that. So moving forward, as far as outdoor games is concerned, well, our next outdoor game is a Heritage Classic. So it'll be fun to talk about that one. But either way, in the meantime, and in between time, be looking for more videos from Trev. Data.